All right, welcome everyone. My name is Kamal Sinclair, and I'm the director of the New Frontier Labs program at the Sundance Institute, and I'm joined by my colleague, Hussein.
Hello.
Hussein Karimboy, he's very humble, is a programmer at the festival, both for film as well as for virtual reality, and supports Shari Frillo, who is our chief curator of all things New Frontier, with her curation of the festival, specifically focused on VR. I think he's, kind of hitting a Guinness Book of World Record for the number of VR pieces that he's sat through over the last 12 months. We're going to start with a little video to give you a context of what the New Frontier program is and has been at the festival and at the Institute over the last 11 years.
For years, we had a division of Sundance where we were just showing the technology. On the other side was the art itself.
This is enormous emergence of technology and how it was changing the moving image.
We saw the beginning of an explosion of artists working in different forms of media.
We've created this fully immersive cinematic venue, an experiment of sorts.
There are new forms of storytelling. We're on this path, and we're not quite sure where it's taking us.
We really need a place, artists and filmmakers who want to just completely take a risk, try something absolutely new.
Our job and our role is to create a space and a platform to bring new voices and new ways of seeing the world to this place.
A new media landscape was really changing how works were being made, how works were being shown, how works were even playing a role in society.
Changing the technology becomes more capable of delivering the work you imagine. And what you see is a sense of wonder. You see wonder.
This year, it's much more sculptural, much more engaging with the body, telling stories that are completely divergent from the traditional proscenium format.
The artists who are breaking boundaries are the artists who don't even know what it is they're doing, but they're doing it.
For those of you who don't know, we also have, for the past 2 years, a lab dedicated to New Frontier work now.
We could bring this incredible community of artists working in so many different disciplines and creative practices where they could push the boundaries of their work and of storytelling.
Our sense of discovery, our sense of independent expression, our sense of curiosity. This is what the artists bring to this environment.
Over the last 10 years, we've got this explosion of platforms, this adoption of transmedia by master storytellers. This is a moment in time that never existed before.
We've been part of the technology trail for over 25 years. It's been interesting to see how things have evolved.
Ocular evolution is a leap in the ability of storytellers to bring the viewer inside the frame of the story world.
It's a brave new world, so be brave, take a shot. It's out there for you to grab.
The possibilities, pushing the boundaries. We're just at the edge of the next frontier.
Let's see what happens. Let's see where the artists take us.
Sorry, going to cut that little ending short so we can get into this conversation about what Sundance has been doing over the last 11 years and specifically what we hope to achieve going forward, especially as film, television, all these different gaming, virtual reality, as all these different forms continue to converge, our relationships to each other as creators is changing and trying to find new language and new ways to relate to each other. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And Sundance has been a storytelling organization since its inception. Robert Redford obviously comes from film, so film had a heavy role in the Institute, but we've had a theater program since the beginning. We've had dance programs. We've had this new frontier space for storytelling that breaks all form and can, break out into real spaces, digital spaces, interactive spaces, and immersive spaces for 11 years. And our mission is essentially to support independent artists that are following or hacking into the communication architecture. We understand that story does not exist unless it has been heard or experienced. All the emotions, all the ideas, all the philosophies running around in my head and my being doesn't really translate until it becomes heard or experienced by another. So story exists in some sort of a medium, as we know. And what New Frontier's mission has been to follow the artists that are hacking into that communication architecture, finding new ways that story exists, whether it be co-creation, authored, all the different ways all those lines are blurring. And also how our artists that we've been following are actually evolving the communication architecture and pushing human capabilities into new, into expansive directions. So, we've done that over the last 11 years, and we continue to hunt, to scout, to be in relationship, to catalyze community that will continue to push those architectures, that communication architecture, and find meaningful and resonant story. So a little bit about the history. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I think because film is such a big part of the Sundance Institute's brand, it's really important to make sure that artists, independent creators know that this is a space not just for filmmakers, but really is a space that welcomes and encourages the work of artists working in all mediums. So we were established in 2007 because Shari Freelo, who is the chief curator, noticed that there was an explosion of platforms and there was an explosion of ways in which we expressed and created stories. So she wanted to make sure that Sundance was participating and supporting that explosion. Everything from the early days of mobile and transmedia storytelling with mobile opera. We had one of the very first brainwave gaming came through like almost 10 years ago now. We have been a real home for interactive design, cinematic story that is able to allow branching narrative or choice and agency, but still keep that cinematic fluidity. Bear 71 was a real breakthrough a number of years ago, which premiered at Sundance with both data visualization and participatory storytelling. I Love Your Work, Jonathan Harris. Again, another brilliant breakthrough in terms of interactive design and cinema. We supported games and the kind of merging and hybridization of things like fiction or documentary and gaming with 1979 Revolution and games like Walden by Tracy Fullerton. Participatory story has been a huge part of this area of innovation. We launched Hit Record many years ago. The Johnny Cash project came through with it being a landmark project in defining constraints for user-generated content, transmedia storytelling, how story exists and changes and morphs across platforms. Immersive cinema, dome cinema. We had a beautiful piece, Coral Rekindling Venus. Of course, early days of augmented reality, where artists were just starting to play with the very kind of rudimentary versions of AR back in the day. And now it's evolved into this project we'll be launching next year with not artificial intelligence, but with AR, an AR opera all throughout the city of New York. Early ARGs were coming through and practicing and testing best practices with RFID tagged objects and having 60,000 people play within a game throughout the festival. Live cinema is actually making an interesting niche in this world. Tactile-based storytelling where touch becomes a part of how people experience story, not just through the eyes and ears, but through the senses of touch. We had John Underkoffler come through with the manifestation of what he and Alex McDowell had imagined in a Minority Report. They premiered or showcased at Sundance many years ago with G-Speak, which was really interesting to see it come one year as a functional way that filmmakers might edit their work in the future through gestural-based technology into something as poetic as Treachery of Sanctuary, which was a Chris Milk piece that came a couple of years back, taking that same technology and turning it into poetry. Projection mapping is an interesting area of where artists have been playing, both in structural, architectural projection mapping. This, by the way, was the first short film in projection mapping ever. Into performance, into installation, geolocative storytelling, geolocative novels have come through our program. We even represented some of the earliest data visualization storytelling that continues to proliferate and become a really interesting place of exploration. Smart algorithms, like kind of the beginning of generative art and artificial intelligence co-creation came through our process in a number of ways. Physical cinema, how objects, how the internet, kind of really the dawn of how storytellers are playing with the Internet of Things and smart objects being in connected, immersive environments, all that play. We also had the great honor of hosting the very first appearance of the Oculus Rift prototype back in 2012. In fact, I don't know how many know the origin story there, but Shari Freelo went and saw Noni de la Peña's piece at USC. It was a $50,000 headset. They couldn't take it up to Park City, Utah, so Noni's intern, Palmer Luckey, had to figure out a way to make it mobile, and that was one of the things that catalyzed this idea of how do you bring this project, Hunger in Los Angeles, off the USC campus, and we got to showcase that prototype. And that was a real moment because we had, it didn't make much sense to bring a piece that was a one-person, 12-minute piece to a 40,000-person festival at the time, but the lines were around were just booked 13 hours out, and there was something incredibly compelling, and that gave us a spark that we need to continue to invest in this space, that there's something really important about this immersive media that we need to support artists. So it took a year, but in 2014, we were able to bring back virtual reality, and we were able to showcase the very first exploration of Eve Valkyrie's franchise into VR, showcasing James George and Jonathan Menard's Clouds, which was actually a Connect-based, gestural-based piece that Shari encouraged them to port into the DK2. Obviously, Chris Milk's Sound and Vision, his surround concert with Beck. And then that just continued. In 2015, we put a stake in the ground, and everything was VR, well, almost everything but two pieces. And it was a real wake-up call for the film community that this was a medium to reckon with. We had heads of studios coming out of some of the experiences, like Perspective, one of the first heightened narrative storytelling pieces in VR that was showcased by Rose Trochet, coming out of this experience with tears in their eyes. These are heads of major studios going, I thought this was just a roller coaster ride. I had no idea that this could be used for heightened storytelling. I have to, rethink my investment. So, and where they were going to start investing. So it was a very exciting year. It was really a breakout for all kinds of, not only, kind of teleporting into other environments, but also taking the perspective of others in experiences that you may not experience yourself. And really the artistry and the visual aesthetics took whole new levels. 2016, an even wider exploration. We went up to 34 pieces that were heavily scouted and curated, and we brought in things like, room scale VR really started to become an exciting, it kind of started to take new levels, getting past some of the kind of prototype demo stuff into things that really created a lot of resonance and meaning and comedy coming into VR. Real avant-garde artistry, political and social impact stuff was coming through, obviously playing with the relationship with big budget films and companion pieces, as well as small indie films and companion VR pieces. And ironically, that year, one of the breakouts was what we called VR of the mundane, when Job Simulator showcased there. So it's been a really rich journey, and really trying to create space for all different kinds of explorations into VR as we try to figure out the language of storytelling in this medium. And we plan to continue to be a place as people push things like how volumetric capture and photogrammetry are going to move forward, how artificial intelligence, that is coming too, but AR, how the relationship, again, between traditional film and VR companion pieces, how holographic cinema is going to come into play, how full-body interactive VR, how do you get audiences in, through, and connected into those kinds of experiences, and how does performance in VR look, which is a growing niche that we're seeing a lot of artists being able to do live performance in VR. We were really excited to showcase this year things like Melissa Painter's Heroes, which was a real breakthrough, I think, for artificial, again, sorry, I keep going to artificial intelligence. We're looking at a lot of that right now in our submission pool. But how augmented reality can really feel cohesive and not just functional and not just kind of novel, but actually feel rooted in artistic integrity. And even looking at how the medical industry is playing into how the artists are seeing the technology evolve and how there's some reciprocity happening between industries. So it's a very exciting time. That was like super fast overview of 11 years of New Frontier, but I wanted to give you a sense of the gravitas and the investment that Sundance has made with communities of creators so that everyone in this room knows that Sundance is a place that is welcoming and excited by the work that you're doing. I would like to pass it over to my dear colleague Hussein, who can talk about the curation process.
Hello. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. So my name is Hussein Karimboy. Oh, these are, that's fine. I'll go to that one, it's fine. So my name's Hussein Karimboy. I'm one of the programmers at Sundance Film Festival. I program mostly documentary, international film, and now VR with our head curator, Shari Frilo, who can't be here today. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, through examples of 4 or 5 projects we've showed the last few years, some examples of how our process works, what we kind of look for, and why we show certain projects. Now, it's a weird science, programming. There's research, there's filtration, there's selection, and exhibition. They are the main components of what curation is. And sometimes you have all these rules and all these feelings about what something should be, and then a thing comes out of nowhere and breaks all the rules, and you go, okay, I'm in love with this, I'm going to show it. So if I contradict myself a few times, forgive me. So on the question of programming at New Frontier, there's always been a desire to bring together artists from different practices to come together and to let them collide, and to see what new aesthetics and forms arise out of that collision. Despite its name, New Frontier is not some outpost of storytelling or of new media. It is in fact very deeply embedded in artistic practice and in the heart of artists, and has always carried storytelling, the kind of main drive of our institute, at its core. We want to let storytelling be the interpreter of new technology, and for it to tell us what it means to be us. We want to think of ourselves as experimenters. We want to be drawn to the different, to the innovative, to the emotive, and to things like Life of Us, where you are a chimp running through the evolution of time with your friends, who is an amoeba now that wears a watch. We want to explore weird as often as possible. Life of Us is a wonderful, peculiar embodiment of what our curatorial inquiry is. Chris Milk and Aaron Coblin shared a prototype with us about last year sometime, and talked about how this was a new form of socialized VR. We hadn't seen it brought to us in a way that was so philosophical and so cinematic ever prior. It's a pretty wild piece. It's like a long chase scene from a film. Have any of you seen it? Where you kind of go through the evolution of man from being a cell to what we are now. And you can do it with your friends. It's really fun. Is Richard Dawkins still here? He'd have an orgasm over this. I mean, it's like, this is his game, believe me. But apart from that, it kind of brought into us certain questions, like what happens when you go into VR as an avatar? Do you bring the cultural baggage of the real world with you into that space? What stereotypes do you bring with you? If so, what does that mean to the story? But also more prosaic questions that are actually very important, like how does this affect VR distribution? And the answer to that was yesterday when Chris Milk announced that the Life of Us will be shown in VR IMAX cinemas all over the place. So Chris and Aaron are both very respected artists in their own right and have worked in music videos and digital art for years. Chris Milk especially has made some amazing music videos, and to me, music videos are a touchstone of cinematic evolution of language and grammar and aesthetic and social commentary, which makes me want to talk about this piece.
Title's wrong.
Title's wrong. This is Surge by a Dutch artist, programmer, and director called Arten van Meerten. He made an incredible dreamlike world for this song. The detail was exquisite. It was 360 video. No one's perfect. Let's take it easy. But being in that dream, it was horrifying. It was scary. It was fantastical, but also kind of boring if you explain it to somebody. You know, it has to be in VR. This project really had to live in this space. And that's what we realized, that you can take VR to a whole new plane for music videos. If you think it's not a film, it isn't a game, it's its own thing. For the artist, it's their thing. This VR is your thing. It doesn't have to follow any of the other rules. I just gonna try to find Sascha's piece. So, this is another one called Dear Angelica, which was an interactive piece by Sascha Unseld, which was so illustrative and so emotional that we realized this is something that has to happen for us in the festival in its own right. Sascha also made a film called Through You, which we showed. This one was special for us, also with a 360, but it's a love story told through the eyes of a couple, and you kind of live through the life cycle of a love story through dance. And in this piece, there is no dialogue, there's no words spoken, but the edits are all on the dance moves. This very ancient and very pure, very original form of human expression, which is dance, comes together with this amazing new technology, which is VR, and it turns the idea of perception on its head, and you come out crying. There's no other way to explain it. To walk in the shoes of these two doomed people who are in love made it something that was going to, we knew, strike the hearts of lots of audiences, not just one. The idea of VR as a transformative medium is what makes it such an attractive tool for art and for festivals. Yesterday we heard someone say that VR is the last medium. Well, for us, it's kind of the first medium to extend our idea, the complex idea of consciousness, to take us beyond ourselves and to someone else's shoes. Any great art, to me, allows you to walk around in someone else's shoes for a few minutes and feel what they feel and see what they see. You kind of, if any of you have ever watched a film or a show where you're really engrossed in it and you're transported and time moves differently, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Tree sums up this transportive, transgressive goal in a very easy way. Experienced in Vive, we are taken through the life cycle of a tree as a seed. You come out of the ground, you go into the air, you sprout, you evolve, your arms become branches, and you're swaying in the breeze with other trees as a community, with birds eating off of you. It's kind of spiritual, it's kind of zen. You kind of want to call up Lynch on the phone, David Lynch, and say, something you're kind of missing here. It's one of those experiences. And then suddenly it becomes a horror show. When one of the artists stands behind you and lights a match so you can smell smoke, and you see that the forest you're living in is coming down, is being destroyed by commerce. And you have this you have an emotional, but almost an intellectual connection with this tree. This connection was there, you just never knew it actually existed prior. And I swear people were doing people there who had been to Burning Man one too many times really digging this thing, I have to say. Doing these dances and going into trances, it was wonderful. The tree's design, the exhibition style, and the way, again, you turn around the idea of perception, but yet still have an emotive reply, is one that makes this a very distinctive VR piece for us. It attracted lots of different kinds of audiences, not just the ones who were involved in VR, but environmentalists, kids, all loved this piece. Second, finally, we're going to talk about one of my favorites, which won an award here yesterday. It's 0 Days by Yasmin Ilat, where you become a virus and you go into a computer, into an Iranian nuclear facility, and you see what this virus can do. It's a 2-hour film. The documentary it's attached to a 2-hour film. This is its own thing. The film is great. The film is wonderful, but you got the whole message in 5 minutes. And we saw people sitting at a table with a the way it was set up was we had a table, we had two members of the audiences putting on the Oculus, and you were confronted by an agent from the NSA. And they explain to you what's happening. This virus is very, very dangerous. It has the ability to transform the idea of war for us. It can take out an entire city block with the idea of the Internet of Things controlling our lives. This virus can ruin life as we know it. Suddenly, you are mapped, and you are scanned, and you become the actual virus itself. It has to be seen to be experienced. It is one of the most existential pieces that we had last year at the festival. And yet, I don't have a slide for this one, but in closing, I want to talk about Chocolate by Tyler Hurd. So all of the things I talked about when it comes to story, to character, to emotion, this one broke all the rules. This is basically, Chocolate's a world where you enter this landscape and you're surrounded by these little dancing people. Your arms become kind of flamethrowers almost, but they fire out kittens with diamonds in their eyes. And it's just beautiful to behold while a giant cat comes up to you spraying champagne. It's kind of what the Fire Festival should have been, was it not a disaster? And one person from our festival came and saw it every day, twice a day, every single day. And I was just like, saw us coming in again and again. He's been at the festival for a long time. I'm like, why are you here again? What's the story? And he said, I wanted my hit of joy this morning. That's right, yeah. And that's the beauty of what VR can do. It can be a hardwire to the brain to bring out this pure artistic joy. Thank you.
All right. We are almost out of time. Take a picture. If you are interested in submitting to the festival, these are the dates you can also find on our website. We definitely welcome any independent works that you're creating. And even if it's something that's attached to a studio, there's a little bit of a wiggle room when it comes to that because we're trying to pioneer a field. Quickly, there's just a few other programs to be aware of. We have an annual Story Lab, which is for works that are in development. And we've had, which talked a little bit about, and I'll show you the deadline for that at the end. We have had like immersive theater pieces came through our residency program, which is another. Right now, we're about to announce 2 residencies this year. We just closed one with Jaunt VR, and previous to that, one with MIT. But through the labs and through our residencies, we're able to provide really resource-rich environments for artists to get, be in the room with an Oscar award-winning screenplay writer, be in the room with someone like Laura Poitras, who's obviously an Oscar award-winning documentary, but also with Sascha Unseld, also with Felix and Paul, also with people that have had some time to play with the tools and storytelling. These are some of the projects that have come through there. With Hugh last year, that came to the festival as well as the lab, and really investigated what is tactile kind of intimacy of touch in a very rich room scale environment. Traveling While Black will be a series coming through Oculus soon that came through. We work with very exciting partners, very exciting artists, very exciting industry mentors. So you can kind of talk about all the aspects of your project, and then we try to connect the dots with our continuum of Love Nice support to get you connected to resources, hopefully to financing, and the things that you need to fully realize your vision. And we're not only interested in bringing out landmark projects that will help evolve, kind of create noteworthy leaps in VR as an artistic medium, but we're also interested in how it improves the technology. In the case of Collisions, they had to show VR to 100 heads of states at the World Economic Forum in 30 minutes. And at that time, in 2015, there was no way to do that. Got with 2-Bit Circus, and they came up with the first robust VR screening with multiple people at the same time, and that was able to premiere with heads of states at the World Economic Forum. And that's what we're looking for, not only pushing the medium, but also pushing where invention and innovation for the technology can help artists achieve their vision. We also have day labs to kind of share some of the learning. And this is a slide about the next submission for the lab program. Okay, we're out of time, but I can take 2 questions. Anybody have any questions about the New Frontier program that we can address? No? We're good? We laid it all out. Well, we'll be around afterwards, so just come up and see us. Again, if you need to, if you're interested in submitting, we look forward to your submissions. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.